Weavers Cove Energy Corporation, a subsidiary of Hess Oil Company, proposes to build and operate a liquefied natural gas receiving facility in Mount Hope Bay. This video summarizes the proposed project and the reasons why many citizens, organizations, and elected officials strongly oppose it. Save Bristol Harbor, a grassroots environmental organization, prepared this presentation. The mission of Save Bristol Harbor is to preserve the health, safety, and integrity of the coastal waters and other natural resources around Bristol, Rhode Island. So, Save Bristol Harbor opposes the proposed LNG facility. Save Bristol Harbor is not opposed to the Weavers Cove or Hess corporations, nor to LNG as an energy source. We think LNG facilities should be built offshore, away from populated areas and recreational waters. In addition, Save Bristol Harbor supports reasonable efforts for economic development that create local jobs, yet do no harm to our local environment or interfere with the public's use of its waterways. The proposed Mount Hope Bay LNG facility will degrade the environment and quality of life for local residents and tourists. The costs and risks associated with maintaining safety and security during the 26-mile transit through Rhode Island waterways are also of great concern. To use a predominantly recreational waterway to transport LNG and then to offload it in a densely populated area is simply not a good idea. Even if the risk of a catastrophic accident or act were low, we would nonetheless have to be prepared 100% of the time. Hess Weavers Cove Energy proposes to place an LNG receiving platform in the middle of Mount Hope Bay between Bristol, Rhode Island and Fall River, Massachusetts. The LNG tankers would unload fuel at this platform. From there, it would flow through a complex 4.2-mile buried pipeline, then up the river to Weavers Cove. The pipe would travel over known earthquake faults. On March 25, 2010, the United States Department of Transportation deemed Hess LNG's predictive model for a failure of the pipe-in-pipe Bay pipeline unacceptable and unusable. The LNG tankers are 900 feet long, as big as 3 football fields in a row, and can carry 5 million cubic feet of LNG. The LNG tankers are nearly twice as wide and tall as typical ships that currently travel through Narragansett and Mount Hope Bays. The top of the tanker would come within 5 feet of the Mount Hope Bridge as it passes underneath. That is at the center of the bridge. The clearance decreases if the tanker deviates from the channel due to strong winds or currents. The tight clearance creates conditions that could cause collisions between the tankers and the bridge. Ship collisions with the Mount Hope Bridge have occurred before, resulting in significant bridge damage. Before passing beneath the Mount Hope Bridge, the tankers would pass beneath the Newport Pell Bridge and travel along the west side of Aquidneck Island. As the tankers travel through the bay, a security zone may be created around it, the full extent of which is shown as red in the image. All boat traffic could be excluded from this zone that would extend 2 miles in front of the tanker, 1 mile behind it, and 1,000 yards on either side. Here is what the LNG tanker would look like at different points along its 26-mile route. From Castle Hill and Newport, we see armed security boats accompanying the tanker along its route. The empty lawn chairs are a reminder of the potential impact to tourism in Rhode Island. People along the shoreline may be asked to leave as the tanker passes towards the Newport Pell Bridge. However, given the length of shoreline and limited resources for patrolling them, this would be very costly and seems unlikely that it could be done effectively. There are only 3 ways to get off Aquidneck Island in a car, and the LNG tankers will pass under 2 of them. The Newport Pell Bridge is one of them. We can expect this bridge to be closed 3 times each week for the LNG tanker, resulting in significant traffic backups and delays for residents of Portsmouth, Middletown, and Newport. The Rhode Island Bridge and Transit Authority would most likely close the Mount Hope Bridge when the tanker passes underneath. This would create significant problems for those who use this bridge for commuting to work, shopping and dining, school and recreation. Hess proposes to build the LNG tanker berthing station in an area used by recreational boaters and fishermen. The proposed site is bordered by many homes. The fuel transfer station would be located in the middle of a highly populated area. This violates international guidelines for the protection of civilians from the dangers of liquefied natural gas. The platform is about 6 stories high, and the LNG tanker is about 13. The seascape viewed here will change forever. Is this the right location for a fuel transfer facility? Mount Hope Bay's winter flounder population is already stressed and vulnerable to additional changes in its environment. The dredging required to bury the LNG pipe and build the berthing station would cause long-term damage to the seafloor and contribute to a decrease in water quality. The dredging would cause Mount Hope Bay to lose more than 90 acres of winter flounder spawning habitat. Although Hess Weaver's Cove Energy has promised to pay for restoration and mitigation plans, their success cannot be guaranteed. This project also has the potential to harm other fish and shellfish. The Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority will close the Newport Pell and Mount Hope bridges when an LNG tanker passes underneath. This will happen 140 times a year, causing severe traffic delays that may hinder local fire and rescue in times of emergencies, not to mention the many citizens who traverse the bridges daily for commuting to work. The wide safety zone required by the passage of the tankers will restrict every citizen's ability to use the beaches, waterways, and shores of this ocean state. This flies in the face of the Rhode Island Constitution, which guarantees that the public shall continue to enjoy and freely exercise all the rights of fishery and the privileges of the shore to which they have been heretofore entitled under the charter and usages of this state. The town of Bristol has estimated that approximately $5.5 million would be required to build and operate the emergency infrastructure required to respond to an LNG emergency. Diane Medeiros, Bristol's town administrator, says it would be impossible for Bristol to provide even the minimum security requirement for the passage of an LNG ship. Hess Corporation acknowledges the risks associated with LNG transport in their 2008 annual report. Our oil and gas operations are subject to unforeseen occurrences which may damage or destroy assets or interrupt operations. Examples of catastrophic risks include hurricanes, fires, explosions, and blowouts. These occurrences have affected us from time to time. Is another LNG facility really needed? Dennis Blair, U.S. Director of National Intelligence, reported to the U.S. Senate just this year that recent developments in the U.S. gas sector, primarily shale gas, have made the United States essentially gas independent for at least a decade or two, if not longer. The increase in U.S. natural gas resources has added downward pressure on gas prices worldwide, sharp declines in U.S. imports of liquefied natural gas cargoes, increasing liquefaction export capacity, all of which may have produced a glut of liquefied natural gas available on the market. Tony Regan, former executive in Royal Dutch Shell's PLC's LNG business, states that it's the worst possible moment to increase production because the world is in recession and prices are so low. New England already has 4 LNG terminals. These are operating substantially below full capacity. Long-term projections by the U.S. Department of Energy show that U.S. demand for LNG will be less in 25 years than it is today. The market can easily be satisfied by existing LNG facilities even if demand increases. Do we really need another LNG facility in the Northeast? Even if we did need another LNG terminal in the Northeast, is Mount Hope Bay a suitable location? Or would it be better to build it away from population centers with far less adverse impact and lower risks? The Society of International Gas Tanker and Terminal Operators offers criteria and best practices for siting LNG terminals. For safety's sake, they recommend sites with low probability for catastrophe, avoiding population centers, staying away from shipping channels, avoiding conflict with other uses of the waterways, avoiding long, narrow waterways with navigational hazards, avoiding the outside curve of a channel. The proposed LNG terminal in Mount Hope Bay fails by a wide margin to satisfy these criteria. The Weaver's Cove proposal raises several additional concerns. Both recreational and commercial boating operations in Mount Hope Bay will be altered to accommodate the LNG tankers. Local water-related business will suffer. Communities along the tanker shipping course will bear new, substantial, unrecovered security costs. The facility will become obsolete, stop operating, and need to be closed. Will it remain an abandoned eyesore, or will it be removed? Who will remove it? Hess has not guaranteed funds for demolition and restoration. What if the tanker hits the Mount Hope Bridge? This has happened before. A barge hit one of the piers of the bridge. This could happen again, but with LNG on board, the consequences could devastate the environment, the economy, and many local residents. When the costs and benefits of the proposed large LNG terminal in Mount Hope Bay are evaluated fully, the scales tip heavily against this project in this location at this time. Local costs and risks include financial burdens on taxpayers, loss of local tourism and fisheries jobs, irreversible damage to the local environment, diminished local quality of life, restrictions on recreational use of waterways, bridge closures and traffic jams during tanker transit, bridge damage due to tanker collision, acts, injuries, or lives lost, security costs for tankers, facility, and pipeline, higher imported natural gas costs, more expensive than domestic natural gas, continued investment in and reliance on foreign energy sources, eventual abandonment of the LNG facility, all of which far outweigh any projected benefits for the proposed facility. Save Bristol Harbor, along with virtually all of the local and state officials in the area, believe that it would constitute flagrant negligence and dereliction of duty for this LNG project to be approved. Save Bristol Harbor opposes this LNG project because it will have serious adverse impacts on our daily lives, local environment, and add significant unwanted, unneeded risks for us to bear for a long time into our children's future. LNG facilities should not be built in populated areas and recreational waterways. By working together, we can stop the threat of LNG in Mount Hope Bay. Please take action by sharing this presentation with friends, neighbors, and family. Also, please show your opposition by contacting your elected representatives, signing Save the Bay's online petition at www.savebay.org, and participating in peaceful public demonstrations against this ill-conceived plan.